You're watching W.Media and we are coming to you from the Chennai Cloud and Data Center Convention. Joining us now is Mr. Harsha Ram from Sify Technologies. Welcome to W.Media, sir.
Thanks, sir.
So, before we begin, could you tell us a bit about your own professional journey and a bit about your organization?
Sure. I think my own professional journey and my organization's journey is more or less, the same. I've been now with Sify for about 24 years, my first job. And I've gone through the entire grown through the organization, and Sify itself is about 26, 27 years old, or maybe a little more than 25 years old. So in many ways, my own professional journey and Sify's, my organization, Sify's journey has been roughly, has more or less been the same. In terms of Sify, we started off, way back in '96. We had a combination of a B2C and a B2B business. So we were one of the first private ISP in India. Ran that for many years successfully. We had a fairly large consumer business at one point of time. Our brand was built around the consumer business. And then we made a very conscious decision in about 2008 onwards to slowly exit the consumer space and pivot more or less to the enterprise space. We had roughly about 40-45% of revenue that was coming out of enterprises in about 2008, and then since then we have exited the consumer space and moved largely to the enterprise space. And we did that for strategic reasons, and we thought that was a sort of a niche that we could fulfill. In terms of what Sify does, we basically got three businesses. The first one is obviously the data center business, well-known, fairly large data center business. The second piece of it is a connectivity business, B2B connectivity business, where we run largely, for businesses, run mission-critical networks. So we are not running, consumer type networks. These are really mission-critical networks driven by SLAs, driven by high performance throughputs, things like that. So that's the second piece. And a third piece of what Sify does is again a very strong, has a strong vindication in terms of our success, which is around the managed services, IT services space. So that initially started as an overlay on top of our infrastructure, data center and network, in terms of doing security on top of the data center or on top of the network, or doing system integration on top of the data center network. But now it's got its own independent trajectory, right? So three businesses. Over 24 years, I've had the opportunity, obviously, to see multiple sides of Sify. But in my current role, I run the network business for Sify.
So how would you say, what have you observed, how have you seen India's connectivity ecosystem grow and evolve over this period?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I think we are sort of seeing what I call version 3 or version 4 of it, right? So I think the initial years of the internet, we had, I would say, was all the way from 96, 97. We got our license in 99. Till about 2007, 2008, I would say, it was sort of very early stage. People were trying to figure out, where the internet is going and, what's the best way to deal with it and all, right? So I think that was sort of the first phase of the internet, early years of the internet. I think between 2008 and 2014, I think what happened with the networks was it pivoted to being mobile first, right? Till about 2015, 16, it was largely mobile oriented. You had 2G, 3G, 4G, wave after wave coming in, and a lot of transition in terms of what happened on the networks. I think 2016, 17 onwards, I think we started seeing a different type of networks getting built in India, which are largely, I would say now we are sort of 7-8 years into that cycle, which are largely oriented towards delivering cloud and supporting cloud, right? So that's the third phase that I see. And I think that continues as it is. But I think we are in sort of early stages of what I call phase 4, which is really, how do you support AI and newer things around that AI will sort of, get us to, applications that AI get us to. how do you support those kind of workloads and those kind of use cases in India? I think I wouldn't say we are there, but I think we are sort of in early stages of that. And within Sify, we are sort of we are not saying that we have deployed AI or we are deploying for AI, but what we are really focusing on is if AI comes, is my network ready to support something like that, right? I think that's where we are right now.
So given that, what is your vision for a robust and reliable connectivity ecosystem?
So I think couple of things, right? So 10 years back, if you looked at most enterprises, if a bank branch was down, frankly, it didn't matter, right? The folks would go out and have some tea and they would actually, most bank branch managers would be happy, right? That, they've got some time off, okay? That's on a lighter note, but I would say connectivity was not considered, especially the B2B side, was not considered to be sort of mission critical business impacting to a large market.
Yeah, but now if there is one small outage,
exactly.
it paralyzes the system, like what happened in Singapore a year ago.
Yeah. So I think that importance of that connectivity and the reliability of the connectivity has gone up tremendously. And I think post-COVID, we have seen a completely different world, right? I think most organizations have realized that that's the fundamental backbone. It was an area that they didn't spend too much time and attention on. For many years, it was like considered to be, trivial. But I think now more and more and organizations have realized that that's absolutely mission critical, right? So their business right now depends on that. A 10-minute outage has impact on business, brand, customer experience, right? So I think there's a greater emphasis on quality of network. And as a result, what we have seen is, especially some of our really some of the really big customers that we run really mission critical networks, it was always, the conversation was, this is India, the quality of network will be poor. It has its own challenges, roads are getting dug up and things like that. But I think now the question that we are getting is, why can't it be like what it is in a more developed country?
Exactly. We have world-class people, we have world-class techies.
Exactly.
Why can't we be world-class?
Exactly. So I think that conversation has changed, and within Sify, for example, we have this big focus right now on improving the quality of our network, right? And it comes from three things. It comes from good infrastructure, good operations practices on the ground, and the third one is obviously, how much of automation, self-healing parts of the network that we can do. So I think it's moved from being, it's a necessary evil to, this is important to my business, right? I think that's the biggest change that
There's been a shift in mindsets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, let's speak about three key areas: subsea cables, IXPs, and 5G technology.
Yeah.
Now, all of these are important elements in the connectivity ecosystem, but are we building and deploying this infrastructure smartly in the correct locations and in time to keep up with the ever-increasing demand, especially that comes from the cloud and data center industry?
Sure. So I think the subsea cables is an interesting area. I think if you look at by and large between say late 2010, 12 in that range, till about 22, 23. I think subsea cables in India sort of, there's been a pause, right? In terms of, maybe there have been 2 or 3 new systems that came up during that period of time. I think there's now an acceleration of new subsea investments coming into India. And I think that will only, at least what we are seeing and getting a sense of the market is that there are more projects coming to India between now and 27, 28, right? So I think subsea investments today, largely focused around, about 70-80% of it into Mumbai, maybe another 20-30% into Chennai. I think that has to change. I think there has to be more, subsea spread across the country. We are a big country with a big coastline, right? And there's an opportunity to improve the resiliency in India, especially on the eastern seaboard, right? So it's in my view, there has to be a Chennai plus one strategy on the eastern seaboard and a Mumbai plus one strategy on the western seaboard, right? I think if you're a big digital user like Sify, like India, you need at least 3 to 4 places where you have a plethora of cables coming in, right? So on subsea, I think we have seen a pause and not many subsea cables coming to India. In fact, a lot of the old ones will start getting decommissioned by 27, 28, late 20, from there onwards. So, you have to fill up that and then build for the future, right? So, but we see the action, starting to see the action. And there are already 4 cables that are in various stages of, what they call RFS, which is turning up and things like that. And then I would assume that India needs another a dozen cables from various parts of the globe coming into India, right? So I think that's an area that I think India needs to see a lot of improvement, a lot of development, a lot more development right now. The second one is, I think, the 5G side of it, right? I think 3G to 4G saw a big jump in experience.
Yes.
What happened to the market with 3G to 4G was commendable. I think the sense that, and I'm not an expert here, but the sense that I get is that 4G to 5G doesn't, in the way that we consume it today as a consumer, if you're just streaming and if you're just doing what you are doing, 3G to 4G you saw a big difference in your experience.
Yes.
4G to 5G, I don't think people are seeing a perceived value of in that difference, unless new applications come up, right? So, is there more gaming? Is there more virtual reality? Is there more enterprise-oriented applications that can run on 5G? So, until the application ecosystem develops, I don't see significant perceived value that people see in 5G for the time being, right? But it's a matter of time, right? With most technologies, it's like
conversations are always taking place about 6G these days.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it has to progress. I mean, you naturally have to progress. But as a consumer, just doing what I'm doing, is it impacting my life? Maybe the answer is no, right? So I think that's the challenge, right? But you have to keep developing new technology and deploying new technology. So for those that sort of deal with that space, it's a bit of a, how do you do it, right? How do you time your investment around, right? I think that's the sense that I get of what's happening in the 5G space there.
What about our IXPs? Are they future ready? Are we doing it right?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot more work that ISPs need to do, especially around if you take, say, fixed line to home, right? India, that's an area that we lag most global markets, developed countries. And I think having fixed line broadband into home definitely is what I call a GDP changer. From a technology standpoint.
True.
I think India lags a little bit of that, and I think a lot more needs to be done. It's a hard business case. I understand that for many people, but India needs that. That's the way I look at it.
So, while you agree that we need this reliable connectivity ecosystem, what would you specifically say if you were to point out to 3 urgent gaps that need to be filled?
Yeah.
What would those be?
So I think 3 things. Okay, so I think the first and foremost, in terms of reliability and in terms of cost, I think the biggest challenge, tends to be, just being able to build fiber infrastructure. Right? It's the right of way. It's the number of permissions that you get. It's
we had a dark fiber shortage also for a while.
In pockets there is dark fiber shortage. In pockets there is not, right? And in pockets probably there's excess capacity also, right? So I think it's a combination of that, right? So A is speed at which you can build, ease at which you can build, the cost at which you can build, right? I think just the construction element and the management of the fiber is, I think, one thing. I think some states get it. They see this as an enabler for the state. Some states tend to jump into this rent-seeking mode. How do I maximize the value of my right of way and things like that. So states that have seen the value of of providing and that whole ecosystem well to providers like us have seen tremendous growth in data centers, specifically around data centers and things like that, just by using right of way and how you acquire it and the speed at which you can build and things like that, right? So one side is clearly, the cost, speed, and time of construction, right? And the ease of the construction. So that's one. Second piece that I see is there is a view that all networks are equal, right? So
They're
when I say
not?
all networks are equal, a network is a network,
Yeah.
right? But the way I would build a mobile network is very different from the way I would build a sort of a enterprise network is very different from the way I would build a data center to data center network, right? And I'm also starting to see traction around that, because then you have, in most developed markets, you have people who sort of focus on those three as specializations, right? In India, you find people trying to do, network is a network, I'm everywhere kind of a model, right? But in India, I think that's getting better. I think people are starting to realize that there is value in the way a mobile network is built. There is value in the way sort of a B2B network is built, and there's value in the way a pure data center to data center type of a network is built, right? And so the innovation in each of these areas is starting to play out in India, right? I think that's an area that I think you'll start seeing a lot more traction in the way people are starting to build these networks separately.
Keeping with all of these things in mind, how would you say Chennai fares on all these fronts?
Okay, so Chennai, I would say, if I turn the clock back a little bit, I think with both the tsunami and the whatever the cyclones that we have had, took a little bit of a hit, right? In terms of people saw. And which is why, if you look at it, there was a pause around data centers largely for about 7-8 years, which is where markets like Mumbai sort of overtook. Prior to that, I would have said Mumbai, Chennai were almost equal in terms of visibility, and then I think sort of Mumbai took that lead. Chennai was considered to be a high risk for some time, right? I think that has changed now, right? I think you're seeing a lot more construction around data centers. There's so many new data centers, and I'm sure today's session you'll hear quite a few of them as to why they're building in India, right? Building in Chennai. So I think the data center traction is back, and I think a lot of the policy decisions, the government has been very supportive as well of the data center industry. So I think that piece of it is largely addressed, right? There have been a limited subsea coming into Chennai, but like I said, that's changing right now. There are not many new systems have come, but that's changing. There are at least 2 to 3 systems right now which have just about come up or are coming up, and I see at least half a dozen other systems coming into Chennai in the next, say, 4 to 5 years, right? So I think the subsea side of it will pick up, has picked up, and will pick up traction. So that's good news. So we have data centers being constructed, subsea coming into Chennai. The network in Chennai has been, by and large, fairly stable.
But it's not stagnating, is it?
It's not stagnating. I think it's picking up.
Okay.
So I see, I think it's been a little, as a market, it was a little slow, but I think it's now picked up, and it's starting to keep pace with some of the other markets, right? And Chennai obviously has advantages of subsea, which some of the other markets don't have.
True.
So I think it's just a matter of time before it starts picking up growth in Chennai starts picking up.
As someone who's passionate about technology, what are some of the innovations in connectivity that you have your eye on, things that have taken place internationally and you'd like to implement in India?
Yeah, so I think there are basically 2-3 things that I see, right? And it comes back to that question, as to, when we talk about AI, AI is not yet in India, right? Or, nobody has any meaningful deployment of scale
Some
right?
people might disagree. We have huge AI adoption. The majority may not be
Yeah,
there.
yeah. When I say AI is not in India, I'm saying there's no meaningful big adoption at scale. I mean, all of us are using ChatGPT and things like that, right? I'm not saying that it's not there, right? But in terms of infrastructure,
Right.
there's been no, meaningful adoption. And when I say meaningful adoption, if you look at some of the sort of announcements coming out from other parts of the world, right, in terms of gigawatt campus, those kind of things haven't happened in India yet, right? It's early stage, right? And you just have some of
Maturity is yet to
the
take up.
hyperscalers starting to turn up GPUs in India and things like that, right? So the way I would look at it is, what is the impact of AI on on the network, right? And I'll give you a very I always give this example of people, right? In the past, you would open an email and start writing your own email. Now, what's happening is for every keystroke or every word that you type in, basically your email is going back and checking against AI this thing as to what the rest of the email. It's basically prompting you as to what the rest of the email is going to look like, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially. So if you look at it, what was, when you press send, you actually created network traffic. Now for every word, you're actually creating network traffic back and forth, right? So the implications of AI on network is I think a very interesting area for us, right? I mean, that's an area that we are really trying to innovate. How do you build networks that can support that kind of traffic, right? At the same time, you don't want to move too early, build a whole bunch of investments, and then, you don't know which way this AI is going to move. Is it going the DeepSeek way or is it going the open chat?
DeepSeek was...
Yeah. So you don't know, is it 20 terabytes or is it 2 terabytes, right? It's a factor of 10, right?
That impact of disruption, it creates a lot of anxiety, one can say?
Yeah, exactly. And for people like us who are building infrastructure, our payback is 4 years, 5 years, right? The challenge for us is really, if you move too fast, maybe, there's a DeepSeek and it disrupts your long-term traffic projection. And if you don't, you're probably not in that race, right? So it's a fine balance between trying to find the right way to build the networks. So I think that's one for us. The second piece that I think really requires some time and effort is, today if I look at it, India data center and India consumption of data is for India. People are building cloud for India. People are building, people who bring content for India, right? I think the innovation, and it's not just service providers like us. It's government, it's tax, it's a whole bunch of regulatory changes. I think as an industry we need to innovate to try and figure out how do you make India the sort of how do you use India's resources to export to the world, right? I think that is another area that I'd really sort of look to the industry working together, because it's not a problem that one of us or two of us can solve. But I think if we can get to that stage, I think India is no longer people talk about 2 gigawatt, 3 gigawatt type. In my view, it's you can double, triple that projection if you can start looking at this model. How do you use India and India resources to export to the world?
So 5 gigawatts in 5 years, is that doable?
I think if you are just doing India, for India, again, I don't know the impact of AI.
Yeah.
But if I extrapolate the current this thing, it may be on the higher side. Okay. I mean, that's I could be wrong, right? And then you need to extrapolate for AI, and I think the really big curve there is how do you become an export market?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we have great outsourcing companies that we have built, IT outsourcing companies that we have built out of India.
Yes.
We can also be an outsourcing, export-oriented data market, right? Which is a combination of data centers, the application, the network, and things like that, right?
Localization and sovereignty laws.
Yeah, obviously those are there, but and there's a lot of tax implications and a whole bunch of other things, right? But But if we can export services
Yeah.
to that extent, I'm sure we can, build a model that I think can export this as well, right? So if I just take the current thing, 5 gigawatts, 5 years, is good. The question is whether people can execute on the ground, right? In terms of capital, in terms of land, in terms of power and things like that, right? That's, I think, the question that I'll have for that thing. It's a good ambition to have as an industry. The question is whether we can actually execute on the ground for 5 gigawatts, right? I think that's because the data center, I don't think is about demand. It's about whether people can execute on the ground, right?
Yeah.
But in AI, I believe, has the potential to disrupt, and the disruption can be, our conservative estimate is, 4x. Our top of the line estimate is 10x of what the demand can be. Okay, that goes on data center as well as on the network side. And then you add potential exports around that. It can be sizable, right? That opportunity for India.
Now let's talk about your organization's growth and plans. We're halfway into 2025.
Yeah.
What can we expect in the next half? What's coming up in 2026? What can you tell us?
Okay, so I think a couple of things, right? So obviously on the data center side, there's a big roadmap, and we continue to invest. I think. So there are about 6 big markets that we've invested in, Mumbai being our biggest one. So we have newer towers and newer projects coming up in Mumbai. We just inaugurated our Chennai data center about a couple of months. We inaugurated a new one in Noida about a month before that. So I think from a data center standpoint, I think a lot of the capacities are the hard yards are done. We brought capacities up and ready for demand, right? So that continues. I think on the data center side, we are starting to now look at some tier 2 cities. So we have right now projects going on in Lucknow, Chandigarh, and a couple of other cities, tier 2 cities, that we are starting to build some smaller data centers there, right? Regional data centers. So that's an area that we continue to invest and grow. On the network side, we're starting to build a lot more purpose-built networks. What I call express routes. So we're trying to really build these networks, say between Mumbai, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, which are really express, and it's designed for people who are consuming networks inside data centers, right? So we don't drop at every city. So it's like an express route, right? As compared to taking a local train which stops at every this thing, right? So that's how we're trying to sort of build these. So we get certain benefits on, so we sort of lose the number of markets that we can address, but we get certain benefits around latencies, costs, economics, which actually are important to people who are inside data centers, right? So that's the other sort of the innovation that we're doing. On the subsea side, we actually landed a cable at our Mumbai cable landing station in November last year. We are right now working on turning up that cable and getting the cable ready for operation. So that's a fairly large project that we actually executed last year. But the work on turning it up is going on this year. So that's roughly 16 fiber pairs potentially with something like 30 terabits per fiber pair. So almost like half a petabyte of capacity. Potentially that system
That's
can.
huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. The new ones are all coming up there, that size and scale, right? So that's an area that we are sort of focused on trying to operationalize at this point of time. And then we should have in the second half of the year some announcements around some new subsea systems. We're doing a lot more investment around metro fiber. That's the fiber within the city, across 3 or 4 big markets.
Okay.
Again, what we are trying to do is build some custom fiber, that connects up data centers and things like that, as compared to trying to be everywhere, and some innovation around fiber, right? So a lot of money and a lot of time and effort going around in trying to build the infrastructure, which we think is the right infrastructure for India, for what is applicable today and what is coming tomorrow.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Final question, sir. What attracted you to participate in Chennai CDC, and what do you hope to accomplish? We're also holding Interconnect World, where you're one of our speakers.
Yeah.
So, what was the allure of this for you, and what are you expecting today?
So, I've now been in Chennai for 24 years, right? So, it's almost become like home to me, right? Yeah, but apart from the passion of being local and, being very, sort of clued into what happens locally, I think Chennai is a big market. I think it has lagged maybe some of the other markets for various reasons, right? And I think the momentum is shifting, right? I think we're going to see a lot more action happening in Chennai, and I think especially with new subsea projects coming in, all the data centers that are getting built up, there's quite a bit of capacity now in Chennai that's come up.
So, are you hoping to interact with all those players here at W.Media?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see the industry, come together to celebrate and to participate in a joint forum. So it's good to sort of meet up with industry peers and see what's happening, right? And like I said, extremely passionate about what will happen to the Chennai market. So this is a good opportunity to see what's happening in this market.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.